I'd like to call the January 4th, 2018 Lakeland Shore City Council meeting to order. If you would please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first item of business is to adopt the agenda, and before anybody makes that motion, I just would respectfully request that we move item 6B just in front of the consent agenda so that we can get the representatives from the fire department out of here as quickly as possible. Is there anybody that would make a motion to adopt the agenda with that amendment?
I make the motion.
A second.
Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Gentlemen, item 6B, Fire Department
one of you.
report. You're up.
I'll go first, and then we'll hear from Rob.
Great.
Jim Stanley with the fire department. I'm here tonight to make you guys aware of a couple things. First of all, every 5 years the county likes to go over your all hazard mitigation plan. I sent a email late to Tom. I just got it, and so he'll pass it on to you guys. It really, I mean, with your city and the type of businesses you have and the terrain, your main hazards are going to be high wind or tornado type hazards. But at any rate, the county has mitigation funds grant money available. And so if you see something on your mitigation plan, or if you know of something you'd like to try to get some funding from the county for, and I'm just throwing this out like a civil defense or like a weather siren, severe weather siren, something like that, you're more than welcome to bring that to the board, and it'll be open for consideration then. But at any rate, we're at the 5-year mark. Even if you make no changes, you still have to meet with Kelly from the county. Also, there is... Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you just before I lose the train of thought? When you said that if there was something, we'd bring it in front of the board, is that the fire board or the county board?
The county.
Okay.
You bring it to Kelly Matzik from Washington County Emergency Management.
So in that vein, and you knowing our community like you do, is there anything that comes to your
I
mind
can't,
that we should consider?
I mean, you're covered with the storm warning with the ones in Lakeland.
Right.
So, really, I can't think of anything unless you had water runoff issues, low areas. You know,
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, we'll give a little
If
bit more
there's
thought,
anything
but
that
I
you
figured-
or who does your public works?
Yeah, that is an area, John, when we had the straight line winds come through. I think, frankly, the fire department, the one tree I think that impacted a roadway, I think your department cleared that because it was a main artery right away.
The
Oh, I-
seven,
You had a
the
guy-
seven
Guy
trees.
with the oxygen.
Was it 7?
The 7 trees, yes.
Yeah. So, frankly, outside of that, that was one thing that came out of the straight line wind incident that we probably need to have an arrangement. And you had some informal conversations with Tri-City about being on call for that, but we never memorialized that.
But that is a great segue.
Okay.
So the next part of the meeting is going to be this collaboration of operation plan, and basically, I mean, if I go through your plan right now here, 5 years old, there are names I don't recognize, and so people that probably aren't in the position anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So what this plan allows you to do is, so the mayor is in charge of X, Y, Z, and somebody else is in charge of this and this and this. And then there's a new election and there's a new mayor. In this plan, all you have to do is go in and change the mayor and the phone number, contact information one time, and wherever the mayor is mentioned in this plan, it changes it automatically. Public Works, who takes care of your public works, fire chief, fire contact, police, whatever emergency contact information you may have, you put into this plan. And then if you guys aren't available, if the mayor isn't available and I need to get a hold of somebody that can make some decisions, I go into this plan that we would have access to view, not change, and I can get the information I need.
Okay.
And likewise, you guys can if you need to contact us or somebody else throughout the county emergency management or whatever. So this software is $10,000 a year. It would, and you don't have to, but if the cities had to pay for it, it would be divided by 30. So the cost is pretty low, but there's grant money right now. They have enough for sure for over 5 years. And then once they get below a targeted $100,000 mark, then they would either look for more money to fund it or go to the cities and see, do you think it's worth it? Should we continue on and stuff like that? If you did enter into this program and it was costing you $300 a year and you decided to pull a plug, you can do that, and your data doesn't get lost. If a couple of years down the line you decide to get back in it, your information's there. You might have to change names, but at any rate, it's free right now. It's offered by the county with a grant, and you would get, the way I understand it, you would get a 2-year notice before it would start costing anything, and at the end of that 2 years, you can pull the plug, and it would have never costed you anything. The other thing with this, too, then, is we would review your emergency operation plan. And so we're meeting, I'd like to meet with you guys the 22nd at 9 a.m. at the fire station. If we can have a representative, whoever you would consider to be able to help with this. And if there's more than one, that's fine too. And I'll get an official invite out with the time and place and all of that once I can confirm it with Kelly. But right now she had that.
And is that a one-on-one, or is it the 5
There's going to be
communities?
multiple cities there, but so it'll get to one-on-one when they talk mitigation plan for your city.
Well, I'm available.
I am too.
Okay. So like I say, I'll send out a reminder.
Yeah,
Okay.
covered.
Tom's gonna go.
Okay.
You win.
I'll send out a reminder, and if you can, you don't have to bring your emergency operation plan. Right now, we're just trying to get into that collaborative of operation plan and get that information up and going.
And Kim, I think we've had some email exchanges about that plan, haven't we, with the
Yes.
county?
Yes.
So have you already started some of that, or is that something that I need to make sure is on our to-do list?
To-do list, I have not started that.
So what happened is she had a couple meetings up at the county, and cities were invited,
Okay.
and some were able to make it and some weren't. So it's just I find it very important, especially for us who protects 5 cities. We need
Yep.
a lot of information, and this makes a real easy way to acquire the information. So,
Okay. Awesome.
all right,
Thank you.
for your time.
Quick question, Mayor.
Yes.
Clarification, is the emergency operations plan the same as the mitigation plan?
No,
Got it. When you're talking, I know that we've been talking about our comprehensive plan. You were talking about who's gonna go and things like that to the meeting. Is this something, don't we have like Mark Nagel? He's writing the plan. Is these two things, could that be a part of the comp plan?
I don't think it's necessary. I think our efforts with Jim will accomplish this.
Okay. Do those two things have to go in the comp plan?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Yeah, very good.
But we'll double check that.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Jim.
Rob.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Thanks for coming.
My name's Rob Corey. I'm with the Lower St. Croix Valley Fire Department. I'm here tonight to kind of discuss moving forward on trying to adopt the 2015 Minnesota State Fire Code book. Obviously, cities have codes and ordinances that they follow. With this, basically what you'll be doing is you'll be adopting the code, so then that will also fall into your codes and ordinance if you have something that's an issue with the city. Why am I asking for this is because we'd like to get more wrapped into inspections through the cities, with like Lakeland, St. Croix Beach, all the 5 protection districts that we go through. With that, it just allows us to make sure that the buildings are safe, they're up to code in the fire code book, and ensures the safety for our men and women that are on the department, along with anybody that shops at these locations, anybody that comes into these locations just for a minute to browse, anything. Neighboring departments, if we ever have to call them in, that they're safe. So basically what I'm asking for is if you need to discuss about it. I know how much Mr. Wilson talked to you guys about it from our fire district meeting. But basically we want to move forward to make sure this community stays safe and people are always welcome here. Not saying
So
they
we have
wouldn't
not
if-
had a meeting since the fire board, so we haven't
Okay.
had any
Oh,
discussion
okay.
about that as a
But
council.
This is basically for commercial type.
Commercial, yes.
Yeah,
commercial structures.
not so much residential, because that's building inspectors and they do their stuff. But it's so if there's a building that changes usage
Yep.
from, let's just say, from a manufacturing to a retail outlet, as an example. They want to be involved in the inspection because there's sprinkler issues and exit issues and a whole lot of things that go on that they want to make sure are up to code in order to ensure not only the safety of the occupants but the safety of their crews when they go in, so they know where things are.
Yeah. And like he said, with that, it's going to hopefully help us understand what the building is, what's inside of it. When it comes down to a lot of people wonder in the city, well, what's it going to cost me? It's not going to cost us to go there and take a look. What it might cost them is if there is a violation that needs to be fixed, that it might cost them that. But right now, we're not asking for any funding from it. We're not asking for you to pay a salary of someone to go to these buildings. We're just asking for the permission to adopt it so we can get in there, take a look, and make sure they are safe for the men and women that come here, men and women that have to protect that building.
So I shared, and I hope I'm not interrupting you.
No, you're not.
I shared at the fire board meeting that in other communities where I have an office, it's not unusual for the fire department to make an annual inspection. And that from my limited experience, they generally come in, introduce themselves, and explain why they're there, and generally speaking, they're in and out of there in a pretty short period of time. Of course, I'm talking about an office building.
Right.
And most of the time it has to do with our fire extinguishers to make sure that they've been checked and that they're still charged and that they're current. So that's been my experience, and I would argue that it's been a positive experience. My only concern as we're having this discussion is I don't want it to be invasive. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, I want it to be user-friendly, and I'm not suggesting that it wouldn't be, but anytime we start giving authority or that type of a thing, I just want to make sure that the intent of what we're trying to accomplish is clear and that we're all on the same page with that. And I think we are.
I mean, with the most part is, like I said, I don't want to run people out of this community. I mean, this is what builds this community. I mean, if not, I would have not have come back here
Right.
after living here for 20 years to, come back. But I just want to make sure we're safe, because I do have a family at home, along with a lot of men and women on our department, that we want to make sure that the building's safe.
Yep.
What you guys are putting in there is safe and up to code. I think more, surely you said, is we want to educate people. People just come in and think they can just put whatever they want there, and with the permits and stuff like that, that's great, but you also have other codes we got to follow to make sure that we're keeping it up. So I think more than anything, it'd be an educational piece for everybody. Like I said, I don't want to run anybody out of the city.
So
It's
if
not
you
my-
were going to go into a commercial establishment, would you call them up in advance for like a week and say would like to visit your place of business, and can we set up a time to do it, or do you just show up at the door?
Nope, we have to give notice. Definitely give notice. It's not something we're just going to show up for. We've kind of been talking at the fire district of how we want to kind of get it going. We're trying to do like an annual thing. Mayor said is that a lot of the cities do it, and they do. A lot of the cities, you know, just have an annual thing where they say, hey, we're going to come to your business this day. Most commercial places, there's someone there, and they can let you in. And we'll just take a quick walk around. I just did one the other day. It took 30 minutes, and we knew a week in advance that they wanted it. They called us, and we were there. We educated them. We actually learned something, and they're going to teach us something as the fire department that we're setting up right now with another city that is in our jurisdiction.
The
So
inspections that I've had, they've just shown up, and that did kind of always tweak me just a little bit. It's like, well, why didn't you call in advance? But by the same token,
They don't want, it's good not to.
if I was somebody that knew I had material that I wasn't supposed to have, a week gives you an opportunity to get that material out of your building too. So I prefer the set it up in advance, but I can see where at times maybe you need to show
It
up.
can be, but you know, in the long run too, at the night, you know, if you do give them a week advance, maybe they will clean it up, you know,
And it stays cleaned up.
maybe
yeah.
it stays cleaned up for another couple months. But
Right.
you know, the main objective of it is just, you know, you guys all enter these buildings too, and you know, we want to make sure they're safe, and you know,
I wanna say when Shiners opened up, I think we had, Jim did a walkthrough, and I think he hit all our commercial buildings, so that's probably been 4 or 5 years ago. So, yeah, it's a good idea. That's something.
And
So
so-
procedurally, you need us to adopt.
I would like you to, yes, discuss it amongst you. If you got to take a week or in the next meeting, that's great. To, yes, adopt the code for the 2015 Minnesota State Fire Code, and that is the newest version. So I'm not skipping 2018. They just haven't come up with that part yet. So it's
Sure.
still 2015. So then that way, if we do have a violation, there's a procedure if they want to appeal it, and the fire district has been, we're going to kind of work towards it. It's not going to happen, none of this stuff's going to happen overnight, obviously. It's going to take time to build this. But then basically they have the right to appeal. If they don't like who we have on the appeal board, which is a city member, the representative that called the violation out, and then another representative somewhere in the fire district that would sit on it. If they don't like that, they'd have to come to the city and appeal that violation, which comes into a step. So I just want to make sure if this goes through, you guys understand that it could move up to you guys to,
Sure.
to make that
Could
call,
come back
whether
to
or
us.
not they say, yeah, you can skip that violation, and we note it.
So fundamentally, I am in support of it, but I'm wondering, does it make sense to have kind of the plan and the strategy or the procedures to let the fire board finish developing those and provide any comment or concern that we have based on that, and then approve the code?
You know, you can. I mean, right now St. Croix Beach, I think we talked to the mayor there, and he said it's already in there. They're still running off 2007 maybe.
Okay.
Lakeland's running off 2007. I know they were going to work with the 2015.
Okay.
You're more than welcome to. Like I said, we've got kind of a process that we're going with Lakeland. Lake St. Croix Beach just sent out their list of what they'd like for fire inspections. So we're going to start those. But basically what we need is, I'm looking for some support with it, and then
Yeah.
so then I can know where I can go, how far I can get built up. And my objective is to have a list so you guys, if you own the business down the street, you know well in advance that, you know, right around August is my month.
I think the thing that the fire codes is one thing, but I think what we have to do as a city is to establish the inspection regimen, for lack of a better way of saying it. Yes, you can, the fire department will do an annual inspection based on these criteria. You know, I mean, we'll call a week in advance or whatever it happens to be.
And
I
the
mean,
fire board's working on that, right?
The fire, is the fire board working on that, or should we work on that? Is I guess where
Well,
I'm going.
I mean, the fire boards, like I said, we're still in kind of the phase. That's why we're kind of starting right here in the
Right.
first of the year to get this going. My main goal is to have your support, because if I don't get it, I'm wasting my time.
Yeah, you're wasting
I'm
your
wasting my
time,
time for nothing. you
So
know.
why don't we, Randy, do you have questions? I saw you taking notes, so let me turn it over to you.
Thank you. You want us to adopt what? Hang on.
Yep.
2015 Fire Code Ordinance Book?
State Fire Code book, yes.
State Fire Code. How many pages is that?
586, I
3 inches
think.
thick.
Yeah, it's about this big. It's 500 and some pages.
Okay,
Yeah.
will we have a chance to look at that?
Yep, I can get you a copy. I can send it to Tom
You can
tonight.
see it online.
And you can see it online.
We'll get you a copy.
Yeah.
Got it. So we don't pick and choose, we would just adopt the entire
Right.
Bible.
Correct.
Right. And I think, Rob, you and I talked about this. I want to make sure that those fire codes for 2015, those are what our building inspectors are working off of in a residential
Correct.
environment already.
Correct.
It would be similar to adopting the universal building code.
Yeah. So it's not. And
I just don't want to become more, like Brian, you're saying, more onerous and, we're user friendly around here.
We already have it, basically, it's the building code, but there's a few
It
other
is.
things.
Yeah, the fire code goes into a little bit more depth of the fire protection stuff, where the building code, I mean, they pretty much take a lot of the building code and move it into the fire code.
And it could
So-
be a situation, I don't know this for a fact, but if the Lakeland Shores Council had adopted a previous version, that's now out of date, so there's some advantage to, at the very least, getting current.
I don't know if
getting
this
to
is
the
kind of
current.
new to me, so I don't know if we've ever
Right.
done that.
Yeah.
Well, and I would agree with you that a lot of, I mean, I've been on the fire board for 9 years, and this is the first time I've heard about it.
Got it.
And so I think it's a kudos to Rob on this because he's following up on it. He's trying to ensure that everybody's working off the same rule book
Oh, yeah.
in the 5 communities
Right.
so they can have some leverage when they deal with inspections and the like. And as we've gone on in this process, I even have to keep reminding myself this is commercial and manufacturing environments. It's not your house, and you have to, and so that's taken by the building inspectors. They deal with that level of fire protection. This is primarily
And with it, I mean,
Public
if you go
spaces.
into depth with a lot of the residential, I mean, if we do see something really life safety to a resident, if we happen to be in their house, we're going to try to work with that resident as best we can because we want them to be safe as well. It's not here where like I said, I'm going to throw you out, because I don't like it. It's nothing like that. There's so many buildings in this area that I don't think I've even been into, and I don't know what it is, and I'm risking my life to go in there along with the men and women that are in
Tim?
it too.
I have some customers in the city of St. Paul, and they have businesses, and they get an inspection every 3 years, and they just the fire marshal just walks in and starts writing a.
Well, and with that, Tim, I agree. They actually have to send a letter out with
Yeah.
with that. The
But
city
they
of
don't
St.
know
Paul
when
did.
they're coming,
Right.
And they they got like 15, 30 days to do it, and there's violations, there's money, there's
Mhm.
Yeah, we're
But
not
this
going
is
down that
this
road.
is soft compared to that,
And-
which is it's good to have. I
But
mean,
to Tom's comment earlier, I would prefer, I'll grab you 1 second. I would prefer that it be dealt with at the fire board level so that all 5 communities are addressing it exactly the same. Because we've run into that problem before where the rules are different or the policy's different in each community. And as much as we can standardize that, I think it's certainly make your job a lot easier.
Right. And with that, that's just why we kind of mentioned it is if we can get the city's backing on it, because if you're sitting off no code and ordinance with it, and Lakeland is
Right.
I mean, now we just want to make sure every city's on the same
Grow
page.
exponentially. I see a comment.
I just
Cindy?
was, in St. Croix Beach, we have our conditioned and use permit review every year, and then the fire department is directed to do an inspection. So it's kind of a two-pronged question here. If you have that process that allows your inspection,
Mhm.
but then when you're inspecting, is it you're inspecting based on the fire code the city has adopted?
Correct.
Is that?
Yep.
Any other questions or comments from the council? I hope that you're hearing that you fundamentally have our support.
Yep.
The devil's in the detail, but fundamentally you have our support.
Yeah, perfect. I really appreciate it. Like I said, we'll keep working on it to get more in detail with it, but
Sure.
until I know where the cities are, I don't want to, like I said, there's only so much I can do. And then, I mean, the basic other thing too with it is just
you
to
come
figure
with the bullets, the bullet points for, okay, we want to do this annually, so on and so forth, based on that criteria, that you can get through all 5 cities. I think that's great. We will approve of that in a heartbeat. I don't think that'll be a problem.
Well, and I think at the fire board you talked about maybe looking at 1 or 2 other communities in the area to see if they already have something you
Yep.
could work from.
and there's one department, they just go to the places and
Yeah.
just walk in.
Okay.
There's one that the City of St. Paul, like you said, they're more in depth.
Yeah.
They have a big process with this. They actually have every building, which is over 14,000.
Bayport and Hudson are the two that I know do it.
Yep, and Hudson's.
I don't recall Stillwater doing it.
I don't know about Stillwater, but I know Hudson's been working on it. They just started up theirs a couple years ago. So,
Okay.
so we're working towards it. I mean, the thing we also kind of look for is just to know what businesses are out there, so we can kind of develop a plan.
Sure.
So if Mr. Wilson has time to get me a list, then we can kind of also build that and bring that back to you.
Yeah, we could generate a list of our businesses in real
Yeah.
short order.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
I
We'll
mean,
get that
in,
for
in
you.
the long run, like I said, I want every city to know that I'm not here asking for a salary. That's not what I'm asking
Yeah,
for.
no, we understand that. We
I'm-
appreciate it.
I'm-
I think it makes sense.
It's it's actually going to save you money,
Yep.
and that's what I'm looking for. I don't want to throw anybody off if anybody comes to you and says, well, they're just looking for another job. That's not what I'm asking for.
You guys
I'm
have
just
enough
asking
to
for
do.
the support so we can get in and take a look at these buildings
Sure.
for the safety of
Okay.
the men and women of this
Great.
community. So
Awesome.
thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
your
Thanks,
time.
Rob.
Thank you.
I'll move us to the consent agenda. There's two items, the approval of December 7th, 2017 City Council meeting minutes and approve the monthly claims and financial reports. I'd make a motion that we approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion, questions, concerns? I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? It carries. Any public comments? We actually have a couple people in the audience this evening.
This is Sue from the recycling.
Oh, hi,
Young.
Sue.
How you doing?
Great, thank you.
She's my backup.
Would either of you like to speak this evening? Not at this time. Did we have any written comments?
No, we didn't.
All right, we'll move on to unfinished business. Item A is the consideration of resolution number 2018-01-01, which is our annual appointment list. Should be very consistent with what we adopted last year. I did not make any changes, in fact.
Yeah, I didn't volunteer for the weed inspector or the cable.
By statute, I thought the mayor had to be the weed inspector.
Oh, sorry.
And then I am
Huh?
on the,
I said, well, yeah, it does, I forgot I wasn't the clerk. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
and then
So we need to change that to me. Third from the bottom.
Yeah.
And then on the Lower St. Croix Fire Department Board, I'm along with Tom on that.
Okay. So would you be considered an alternate for that?
No, there's, each one has
Each-
two members.
Each city has two
members. So it's,
Okay.
Did you want to continue, did you want to do the cable commission?
Never have.
That, I'd like to keep doing it.
So yeah.
Is that not how, where's that one now?
That's fifth down?
5 down?
What'd you do here, Kim?
You know, I'm looking at this because I'm looking at the 2017, and
thinking-
because I didn't have a Word document, I had to take a PDF and transfer it over,
Yeah?
and this did not line up correctly.
Oh, all right. Well, we better spend a minute on it then. Acting Mayor John, Animal Control Kathy, Bluff Cutting Permit Clerk, Building Inspector, Minspect. Remind me when that contract expires? Is that through 18?
I think so.
Minspec.
I believe it is. Yeah. That's what
Would
you
you mind
indicated.
taking a second look at the expiration date on that?
Absolutely.
I know there's been discussion about that one, so let's appoint them through 2018, but then we need to keep an eye on that. Randy, your cable. City attorney is Dave Magnuson. Candidly, I'm going to reach out to Dave. I haven't really had any conversations with him in the past year, and just see where he is in his career and his workload and all that fun stuff, and see if he's interested in staying on. City treasurer's new culvert inspector, John.
Really?
That's
Really?
culvert, not culvers, by the
Yeah,
way.
right.
I do help John out with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, really, we need two people on that one,
Yeah,
because I have
one
no,
for each end of the one we've got.
I have no clue where it is. I think it's over by
I
here.
clean out to get grades every year.
All right, dog licensing, emergency management, fire district. Is that accurate? The audit committee, you're on that?
Yep, Tom's on that.
Okay. Elections coordinator, Joan has agreed to stay on, thankfully. All council members,
Very
water
pertinent.
management. I think everything else is correct.
So underneath the word Tom, it'd be Tom and me on that. For the
Yes.
fire board.
Yep. Yep. So with those,
Can I say a public comment?
I'm sorry?
Can I say a public comment?
Yes.
Thank you very much for moving your elections from the school.
Thank you.
Why do you say that?
Oh, I have a whole list of things I presented to the school district and school board members and the times have just changed where you invite a lot of strangers into your school. I used to be a volunteer at the school, had to have a background check before I got beyond the front door.
Parents have to have a background check before they can volunteer now.
Yes. And so I think when Lakeland Shores had their elections at the school, it was maybe a couple hundred people stretched out over, 12, 13 hours. Well, now you have 1,000 people from Lakeland going in there, and I don't think that's right. And I voiced my concern.
They don't have that.
So I appreciate your feedback. There was one comment that stuck with me from last month when we talked about it. I think it was last month, wasn't it? And I'm pretty sure John made the comment that, you know, the one benefit that he pointed out was it introduced kids to the election system and to the local government system.
True.
And I think that was really a good point. So in the absence of having the election there, it'd be interesting to give some thought to, you know, how you make sure that our future understands the system and is engaged.
And did I just hear wrong? Lakeland is at the school?
No.
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 They've never been.
No, I mean, I know
No.
several parents that
Yes.
pick up their,
Oh,
well,
Maybe.
They were last time too.
Yeah, Lakeland was
Yes.
there.
Lakeland.
Oh,
Oh,
they were
maybe
last
because of their city hall, or yeah.
Oh, okay, but now, okay, so that was just one.
They haven't
one.
always been.
Got it,
No,
okay.
it was
Well,
2
that's right
years
there.
ago, and
City
then
Hall
it'll
got burnt
be again
down,
this
so.
year, I assume.
Okay. All right. So, is
Okay.
there a motion to approve that
I will
resolution
make the motion to approve the annual appointments.
with the changes we just discussed?
Correct.
I'll second that. It's by resolution. Should we do that roll call or?
Mayor and council members, a roll call vote would be required for a 4/5 vote, not just a simple majority.
Okay. So if there's no additional discussion, I'll call the question. Signify by the sign of aye. All those that are in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those that are opposed? Motion carries. Our second item is consideration of resolution number 2018-0102, which is the 2018 fee schedule. Kim, do you want to hit the highlights there for us?
Mayor and
there are
council
any.
members, I actually took the 2017 fee schedule and changed the title to 2018 and made absolutely no changes. At this time, I don't have any recommended changes. I probably have not been around long enough to be qualified to make any of those changes.
Well, if my memory serves, we reviewed this and had significant discussion last year to increase the fees, and unless you or the treasurer are telling us that those changes weren't enough, and I'm not hearing that, I'd make a motion that we approve that resolution.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item C, consideration of the recycling joint powers agreement. Tom, you wanna
Okay.
hit this?
Yeah. We have, I think we've already explained that we're down to 3 communities now. Oh, by the way, for those who don't know that, out there in the back, that's Sue Young. She knows more about garbage than I ever wanted to. And
Recycling, she knows more
No,
about.
garbage too.
Oh.
And composting. She's been a valuable resource for us on this committee, and I'd just like to give her some kudos on that. We have a couple of agreements here in front of you. One of them is just a joint powers agreement, which is kind of it's just kind of a boilerplate, right, Sue? It's nothing really too. It's just to kind of control the contracting and the execution of what we do in the 3 communities, which I don't think is going to be a whole lot. We're probably going to be getting together once a year. and it'll probably be at Shiners. Oh, I'm sorry, that was out loud. I think the bigger one is the recycling service agreement. We have one outstanding item left with that, and I don't know, Sue, if this has been addressed as to who is going to process the bill. We talked about having Judy Tetzloff do it, and I haven't heard any feedback back on that yet.
I did talk to Judy,
Yeah,
as the clerk from St. Mary's Point. And she said she had no problem, doing the bill.
okay.
Then we had a subsequent conversation, and she said, well, maybe Lake St. Croix Beach should do the bill because they're the biggest. I said, well, Lake St. Croix Beach is basically without staff right now. And I think it says in here that St. Mary's Point will be the administrative.
Right.
And so I said, I guess I see it that it should be just left to St. Mary's Point because I'm there, I've been through this whole thing. And you're the treasurer for 2 of the 3
Yeah,
cities.
she's the
so-
treasurer for us and for St. Mary's Point.
So if you don't mind, let me make just a quick comment on that. I watched another community's meeting on this issue, and they didn't have a clear understanding of what this is. So I just want to make sure that there is a clear understanding of what we're talking about. This is an effort to make it equitable for the community that actually processes the joint powers agreement administratively. It reimburses them or that person for their time to administrate it, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
In addition.
So it's not that we're creating a whole new layer of government somebody, regardless of if you're in this JPA or not, has to administer your recycling contract. So this is nothing new. This is just making it equitable for the city or the person that actually does the work. Okay.
And Washington County does have additional funds to pay for that person as part of your recycling agreement.
Okay.
And what this does is the hauler bills one entity pays back, and that keeps all of your recycling the same throughout the 3 cities. It'll all be on Wednesday. You'll all have the same rules, you'll have the same signage. Washington County is strongly encouraging communities to work together on these things.
The other comment, I guess there were a few comments that I heard that maybe weren't 100% accurate. The 3 communities are able to move forward with the JPA without Lakeland.
Absolutely.
There was a comment or a thought made that the 3 communities needed Lakeland more than any other member, and that without Lakeland we weren't able to move forward.
That is not true. I have confirmed with Highland Sanitation that the price holds and the contract holds with the 3 communities.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm
That's
taking over
fine.
a little bit here.
I mean, you're asking the right questions. And
There was also a comment that this was not cheaper. That the result of going out for proposal and seeking the preferred vendor here, that in fact that wasn't cheaper. But in our review, it is cheaper.
It is much, because the originally 4, now 3 cities did not all have the same hauler or the same contract or the same arrangements. It was different for some cities than others. I think that there is a city that will have to renegotiate their contract, and I'm hoping that they will have the same prices that they do now, but that would not be guaranteed. We have, quite frankly, you have an outstanding price for weekly recycling collection. And not only that, but you know exactly what the price will be for the full 5 years of the contract. It's stated in the contract.
So then it's just funny to see how different groups react to things. But when our group originally talked about whether we wanted it weekly or bi-weekly, I think there was a consensus across the board that weekly would be incredible. A, we wouldn't have to keep track of if it was a recycling week or not. B, we're hoping that the usage goes up, because in my family the recycling bin fills faster than the garbage bin. But there was a comment, again from another community, well, that's additional truck traffic on our streets. And that isn't a comment that any of us made, but it's a fair comment. So I just thought I would share it with you. I still am in favor of weekly, especially for such a narrow margin. I mean, it was a matter of pennies to have it. Am I right about that?
It's $10 over 5 years. I mean, that's ridiculous.
To have it every week as opposed to every other. To me, that just seems like a no-brainer.
And there was only one city that will pay more.
Yeah. Henry's point. Their contract price is going up slightly.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they
Even
still-
with the weekly.
Yes, that representative, that council representative spoke in favor,
Yes.
because this is a good thing collectively, and going forward, it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And then there was a question about, I think right now in our contract, Lakeland Shores, which is currently in conjunction with Lakeland, is it a rebate or a profit share?
Sue, you know the term better than I do.
Basically, it's dollars back depending
If they
on the
reach
markets.
tonnage.
Right, and depending on the markets.
Mm-hmm.
It hit CNN that China has finally decided to pull the plug on most of the U.S. recyclables. When the U.S. went to single-stream recycling, our recyclables got dirty. And so markets are going to be very, very uncertain. And most of the contracts that I'm seeing now do not include a rebate, any rebate money. If that city can do that, more powers and kudos to them. But I'm just not seeing it because markets are a little strained. When the price of petroleum goes down, the price of recyclables goes down.
Which seems logical, but their comment was that based on what they've received, historically, when factored into the contract comparison, that tipped the scales in favor of another vendor, which frankly is their preferred vendor. But if I hear you correctly, you're not so sure that that's going to continue to be the case going forward.
That vendor proposed on this RFP, and at that time, that community was part of the proposal, and that vendor did not propose a recycling rebate.
Okay. And then I also heard a question from Lakeland specifically, who's elected not to participate in this JPA, that they asked the question, well, can they join the JPA at a later date? And I think your first reaction, at least my first reaction, is no, but I don't think you ever want to say no, especially to a neighboring community. I think it would depend. It is probably,
Addressed in here.
huh?
It's addressed in here.
I've done several JPAs, and some of them, there is a buy-in, so that another community could buy into the JPA. And some, there are some penalty clauses. This one, I elected to keep silent, so that if another community wants to come in, the three communities will have total control over whether or not they come in and what the conditions of that would be, rather than saying today, in our crystal ball, this is what we see,
And I think that's a fair way. I wouldn't want to make it punitive, but not knowing what the circumstances are now or what the ramifications of saying yes or no are, I guess my response would be it depends.
I think, Brian, you brought up an excellent point when we talked about it, is the fact that conversation has to include the vendor, too.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, what their thoughts and wishes are as far as including them in the JPA.
What that does to their infrastructure and yeah.
And so, I think there's we'll see is kind of the answer that I think we can give them because we just don't know.
And I'll make one last comment and then I'll stop. I'm a little disappointed that we got as close as we did with 4 communities that worked on it for over a year. I had no involvement in that. That was Tom. That was other representatives. I'm disappointed that we got that close, that we went out to market 4 proposals, and then we had somebody change their mind for whatever reason. Because I don't think that's fair to the vendors, frankly. I think when you go out there and you ask them for their best price, you know, there's an expectation there that if they come in with the best proposal, that they're going to get the business. So I appreciate the fact that the vendor that we're selecting is allowing the three of us to proceed, even though that community elected to back out of the agreement. And I think it initiated in their community, if I'm not mistaken either, which is ironic, the effort. So, John.
No, I have nothing.
Randy?
You chose to have that part that we're just talking about right now remain silent, so it's not in this document.
Right.
Correct.
So what if you were to put it in here to say exactly the,
I thought that's what was in here, that it would be considered if the joint powers.
right, because if it's not in here, then you can't, you'd have to reopen up the contract, in my opinion, to be able to do all this, so.
I have spoken to the hauler and, brought this up, and the hauler has said that yes, they would definitely like to have that other community in. They might not be on the same day as the three of you, but they would be very interested in keeping the price.
But as an administrator of this contract, because we all have buy-in on this, the three cities, if it's not in here, I would look at this and say, no, other city, you can't come in because it's not even a part of this.
There's a sentence in there.
There is. I'd like to see that.
I'm looking for it, sir, I'm very sorry.
No, that's fine. Let's give you a minute. Were there any other questions or comments?
Well, I guess I was just wondering about the bins.
The bins, Maroni is responsible for our bins.
I thought we bought them years ago in our contract, we paid so much for
There was a
them.
cost associated with the bin that each individual customer participated in the cost, is my understanding. But ultimately, I believe it's the property of Maroni's. Not to mention they're labeled that way.
Yeah, so they'd have to facilitate
Yep.
taking them and.
Right.
So we will need to coordinate the exchange,
Yeah.
the new versus the old.
I think the one you're thinking is right there.
Where is it, Cindy?
Under, Article 3 governance, it says the JPB, the Joint Powers Board, shall retain responsibility for interpreting, modifying, or enforcing this Joint Powers Agreement. All right, that allows the board to make any decisions to modify, add to, or do anything. There is a sentence in there that if, any of the communities wanna do something additional, like a cleanup or something like that, that can be done under the agreement.
So Randy, I see you shaking your head. You'd like to see a little more meat in that.
Yeah, E is fluff. Yeah, okay, cool, you can do it, but I'd like to see it a little more specific.
Well, it says it up on the top in the agreement with the cities,
Where?
right up here, at the top of the page, it has, who's in.
Right.
But
it-
he's saying the provision that
If
may
the-
allow an additional member to
Yes,
join.
right. I don't see that.
I think it could be something relatively generic.
Oh,
that's-
very much so.
That just says, the committee could decide to accept another community into our agreement.
Yeah, you said it a couple minutes ago, just perfectly, something about case-by-case basis, or depending upon the situation, depends. Circumstances, whatever, yeah. I'd just like to see that in there as the meat that
So let me
Mary
ask
talked
this:
about.
are we the first community to act on this?
And what I would suggest is that under government, that you add an F then.
So Article 3,
Yes, sir.
and did you say an F?
Yes.
Yeah.
Add F.
Item F,
Add
the
F.
front page.
Oh, I'm looking at. Okay, oh, no.
Yeah, you're on the.
And it would say that
Would you shut that thing off?
Yes.
the JPB shall have, second, doing this on the fly, the ability to,
consider
Perfect, to consider additional
members.
members to the JPB.
And you know, I know that sentence is in there, 'cause I read that
Cindy thinks it's in.
if the joint powers were approached by the city of Lakeland, something to the effect that the decision would be made by that board at that time. I know.
So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the recycling joint powers agreement, both documents, with the amended language to be perfected prior to another community reviewing or taking action on it. So that would be my motion. Is there a second?
I'll say,
Randy, I guess out of respect, I should have asked if you're comfortable with that motion, with the concept of that motion.
So, I'm sorry.
Since we don't have the exact language, my motion is that we're going to approve it subject to
What this-
finalizing the
Right,
additional
right.
language.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Do we want to discuss it anymore? Let's vote on it. All those in favor, signify by the sign of aye.
I,
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for all your hard work. We appreciate it. Really do. I think it's good for everyone.
Oh, okay, so this recycling services agreement is not part of this, what we just did?
yes, it is.
Yeah, we approved that and
Oh,
the.
okay. Well, then I have a concern on this one because it says the city of Lakeland in here.
That has been removed in the final copy.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you much.
it
My
was,
secretarial skills leave a bit to be desired,
Mhm.
and I,
that's not what you're here for.
Guarantee you they're better than mine, so. All right.
And I do have a final contract here. If we want to sign it, we can. We don't necessarily have
I
to.
think we'll wait to sign it until we have that language, so one way or another, if we could get that to Kim, and Kim will get it to me, and I'll sign it. Okay? All right, we're gonna move on to council and staff reports. John, you're first.
Nothing new with the roads. We haven't had any snow. I can't believe we've only had 7.2 inches according to the airport, and we are approaching January. But anyway, I do know that our contract with Tri-County is coming up in May, I believe, of this year. So I just want to alert people to the fact that we're going to have to sign a new one, obviously, with them.
Do you know, I've never met them. I wonder if it's not worth having a meeting with them at some point in time, either all of us, or if you wouldn't mind me participating. Because I'd also like to talk to them about the emergency response issue. So, I mean, if everybody else is comfortable with it, John and I, we would just authorize us to have a preliminary discussion with them, and maybe we try to do that in January, February, and, okay. And that's an independent contract. We're not tied to Lakeland on that?
No, that's just a per hour deal, $95 an hour, I think it is, that they charge us. And
Yes.
with who?
Tri-County.
Tri-County. And then, John, I was expecting you to catch me, but the corner on the end of Lakeland Shores Road was a sheet of ice.
Yeah, but you went down and put some salt down.
I took the liberty of throwing a little salt out
Yeah.
there, and I did it under the cloak of darkness so that you didn't catch me, but
Well, after I spread, just so we can all take credit, after I spread a little extra, the class 5 along the shoulder there.
you did an amazing
I-
job on
yeah,
that.
it was wonderful, but what really irritated me is everybody drives on it, which going around the corner casts it out into the middle of the road. So one time, my beloved and I went down there and we actually swept it off, but it seems to be a constant problem. The more you put out, the bigger you.
They always cut the
The bigger
corner.
you make the shoulder, the more they
The
cut
more
the
they
corner.
cut the corner.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh,
so you really ought to just dig a big hole.
Right.
Or
Put
put
up
a
a
rock there
guardrail.
and then they won't hit it.
I
Make it
put
punitive.
rocks on my corner. If you drive by sometime, look at them. They're all pushed down below the level of the asphalt now. I mean, I kind of built the curb there. It's not there anymore.
Because
So
they
I-
drive over it.
You know,
Right over it.
maybe this is, I mean, I would argue it was probably in our financial report, but I hope everybody noticed we finished $18,000 plus under budget last year. And it's always been, well, I shouldn't say always, but I think it's traditionally been the case that we put that into our reserve fund for roads. So when I first saw the number, I thought I was reading it wrong, and I called Judy and I asked her, I just said, please, because you're relatively new, would you, make sure you sit down with Tom and triple check this to make sure it's accurate, which she had already had scheduled, and it is. We ended up $18,000 on the budget this year.
And I think one of the things, which is really good, because I think when I've been going through some of the papers and that we're thinking about throwing away, I noticed that the budget for the year, let's say 2002 or something like that, in there some period was around $100,000 or 102.
Mm-hmm.
So we've moved up in 16 years, let's just say that number. We've moved up close to $50,000.
Mhm.
Okay, and the fact that we are 18 under it means that we haven't really moved up that much. So.
Well, we went through it line by line. I mean, as I said last month, every $100 impacts our bottom line.
Mm.
We just don't have, there's no fat there to absorb costs. All right, thanks, John. City Clerk, Zoning Administrator Report.
Mayor and council members, you have currently, as of 12/27, only 4 open building permits. A couple of them, well, one is for a new home, so that's gonna be quite, should be open for a while.
Yep.
There's also another new home, or just the footings and foundation. That permit is the only portion of that permit that has been issued. If the city does try to move forward when you're doing your emergency management plan, I would just note that if there are grant dollars available, a big thing on a city's list, smaller cities, is generators. In case electricity goes out, if you have a gathering for people, a gathering place with no electricity, generators are usually helpful. And then the city will be getting a CUP application in the next, I'm thinking maybe week. I don't think it will make your February meeting. It won't be until March to allow for the staff review as well as public hearing notices. But it's for the property that we had the pre-application meeting on.
Sure. So I think there was some thought that we may have canceled January, our January meeting, but I had already scheduled the workshop, so we were going to meet anyways. We'll keep a close eye on February. If that application's not in February, we may have an opportunity to cancel our February meeting. Okay, anything else?
No.
I'm going to take the opportunity under my report to just say that we had a very productive workshop, at least in my opinion, prior to tonight's meeting. Jim Stanton, council member and representative from Lakeland Water Utility, was gracious enough to participate in a question and answer session regarding the rate increases and the water budget and a number of those issues. And I thought from my standpoint that it was productive and very cordial, and I think the outcome or my takeaways from that meeting were 2 things. An annual meeting workshop is probably beneficial for all of us, and that's something that I'll work with Jim to see if we can't schedule for maybe the same time next year in Lake St. Croix Beach.
If I can interrupt before
Yes.
I get your second thought, I think, if the state, or I get confused as to who's doing what, but if there's a report that comes out in July as to the status of, the system, the water system, I'm thinking that maybe
Yes.
it would be better to have that annual meeting sometime when we can have access to a copy of that, and so we can actually look at it and see, what the status is of the present facility.
So I'll jump on your comment. So what you're referring to was there's an annual inspection, as we understand it. I think Department of Health, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was the Minnesota Department of Health.
And it was brought to our attention that in years past, that report has revealed a number of issues that maybe should have been addressed, or at least the council should have been aware of. And we respectfully are requesting that we receive copies of that so that we have some assurances and some insight into what's going on. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Which segues me to the last takeaway that I had was, we had suggested and or requested that they consider appointing or creating, and the Joint Powers Agreement allows for this. There's language towards the end of that agreement, the creation of an advisory board or a board. And my suggestion is that Lakeland would retain control of those appointments, that they would appoint maybe 3 people total, and it could include a member from each of the communities that are on the system, Lake St. Croix Beach, Lakeland Shores, Lakeland, or it could be some other configuration. But I personally see a lot of value into that water department having some additional oversight, if you will, than what is currently there. And that's not suggesting anybody's doing anything wrong. I just think it's good checks and balances, good, fundamental government. So I'm hoping that that Mr. Stanton takes that message back to the Lakeland Council, and that they understand the spirit of which it's being suggested, and that they give it some consideration. So it was a good workshop. That's all I have to report. Should we start with you, Randy?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, let me apologize for missing the water board workshop.
It was amazing. You should have been.
Your name came up often.
I can't imagine. I'm sorry that I'm the one that made all the brown water and now has all the leaks in it and things like that. But it sounds like you guys, it was a very productive, and thank you to Jim Stanton. I know him, and if your recap of what he's done here, and it is accurate, Jim's a good guy.
Yeah.
I put a lot of trust in his ability. Okay, so with that said, I just have one update, and that's on the Yellow Ribbon Alliance of Lower St. Croix Valley. We had our meeting last Tuesday, 2 days ago. Had where we were going to go to Shiners, but they had a drawing class there, so we ended up going to the Current down in Afton, and that was very nice. And so we talked about a bunch of different things, but there are 3 highlights that I'd like to share with the audience and with the City Council here tonight. Number 1, we continue to do our meat raffle at the bungalow on Saturdays, and so if you can come by and spend your $1 and try to win some meat down there, that'd be really great. It's at from 12:45 till about 1:30, somewhere in that neighborhood. They sell the meat raffle. So come on down. We get some of the profits and the proceeds from that, and the rest of it goes back to the Bayport American Legion. And I'm going to leave the biggest one for last. The next one we talked about is we got a donation from a family here, and we got a car. And so the car is I was going to look that up. It's a 1996 Toyota
Avalon.
Very good. You're buying it?
No, I figured you'd buy it.
Oh, goodness. No, I don't have enough room with my garage. But $2,400. It's a really good running car. And will go into the Yellow Ribbon Alliance coffers to help us with assisting the families of the Lower St. Croix Valley and doing the other things that we do, which is the next segue into this is something that we're really proud of. We were able to, within the last month, we got a request for a need for a family here in the Lower St. Croix Valley, and their young son has a very I don't want to say terminal cancer, but certainly is making it very difficult to live life right now. And so we donated $500 to the family, and then we also gave another $250 for Christmas presents and have the parents go out to the movies. It's a really tough situation. One of the parents is in the military, and the other parent I believe is unemployed because they're spending all this time going to the hospital with the young person. So it's a very sad situation, but something that we're really hanging our hats on, so that we're doing what we have to do in that respect. We have our next meeting on February 6th at 6:30 down at the Current, and we're already getting plans ready for our next Veterans Recognition Dinner, which is gonna be on Thursday, November 8th. So already planning for that, all the way into November.
Randy, does your organization or does the organization do an annual report in terms of how much money they brought in and how much money they distributed?
Not required to do it. I suppose it's something that we could do, yeah.
Internally, is there? I mean,
Yeah, we have a treasurer. Yeah, every month yeah. And it's all public information. We've got $7,700, and then we paid out. We got some donation, and then we have $1,000 in our scholarship, and so yeah, we got a fairly good balance in there right now.
I don't want to overdo it, but I think to have a little bit of insight, maybe on an annual basis, just to show everything that you're accomplishing and kind of what the financial, just an overview of the financials, would be helpful.
Okay.
For me, anyways,
Sure.
if you wouldn't mind.
Well, they have
And
a
I'm
problem
not
with
trying
that.
to create additional work.
No, it's real
It
simple.
could be as simple as what you have there.
Yeah.
Good to know. Okay. John?
I think so. I was looking through these checks here. Have they deducted our, whatever we were giving back, the $10 a month, or when was that supposed to start?
It
These
was
checks.
effective January.
Yeah, these checks are for December.
Oh, December, okay.
Good question, though. I don't have anything additional. Tom?
Just one thing on the fire department,
You said you were giving that.
yeah, I
over
know,
to-
I just,
to
and I thought
Jimmy
of something
Robb.
afterwards, and so take away my birthday. The fire department has outstanding ambulance billing. It's an ongoing process, and we have not written off some of this outstanding billing for the last 6 years, is what Tom and I were just discussing earlier. So we've written off about $158,000 worth of ambulance billing that we will never collect. It's just, a lot of it has gone, I shouldn't say a lot of it, a number of them have gone to resource recovery at the state, but that's just the way things are.
Does that get turned over to a collection company at any point?
No, you can't, you can try to do that, but that has, and I don't know, I can ask Jim about it. I think they did that at one point, and Jim was the collection agency for a while. He would drive around and do that, but,
I guess my only question is, just rather than completely walking away from it, even if you only get 20 cents
Oh,
on the dollar,
yeah.
I'm just assuming that effort was made, and
right.
that's why I asked the
And
question.
a lot of it is done, the resource recovery one is an interesting tool from the state, and you can turn it in, and if this social security number pops with a tax refund of any kind, we get first crack at it.
Oh.
And so that's where we do get some of it. Generally,
So you're writing it off to clean up the books, but it's not to say that if something else came in
Right,
through,
right,
that
right,
you wouldn't
yeah,
receive it.
and
Okay.
it's, some of them are 6 years old. Some of these people have passed away. I mean, we're just not gonna, we're not gonna get any of those. But,
Are a lot of them off of accidents up on the freeway and stuff?
car accidents are the least of the problem because most of them have auto insurance, which covers it. The biggest problem is medical EMS runs, and this was up until 2 years ago, this was a huge problem with a number of insurance companies. We would send the bill to the customer, or to the client, patient, whatever you want to call it. They would submit it to their insurance company. They would send them a check back less the deductible, and
And we wouldn't get the money.
we wouldn't get the money.
Yeah.
Because they would use it for something, the hospital.
Well, a check
deduct-
comes to you in your name. I mean,
Yeah. And so that was a
Pretty
huge
obvious.
problem for, I think it was Alina, and there was one other insurance company. And after some state level work statute-wise, they now get it to where there still is a deductible involved, but we get the check rather, or we're co-signers on the check. They can't just cash the check. It's like, an auto accident will be in your name and the auto body
Sure.
shop.
Makes
And
sense.
So we've started to collect that way, but some of that stuff is years old. So they're writing it off. We've been taking it off the books from our collection, from our income end, but we've kept it into collections, and now we're just taking away. Tom was talking to me about it. It was six pages.
So we'll see a significant journal entry to that effect.
Yes, there will be a large deduction in accounts receivable, is what it boils down to.
And there might be some folks that don't have insurance too, that just can't pay. I
Oh,
suspect.
I'm not going to
No,
disagree with
I'm
that.
just,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they're not paying, they just don't
Yeah.
have the money, I suppose.
Yeah, a number of issues.
Yeah.
Makes sense to clean up the books, though.
Wow.
Okay.
I have one
Jim?
comment from, I think it was our last fire board meeting. They did show a video, and I think it was Channel 11.
Oh,
There was a fire at an old farmhouse in
Afton.
Afton. And it was in the middle of the night, and Jim Stanton took the call, and with him having
Jim
the-
Stanley.
Stanley, sorry, having the duty vehicle with them, and then they have this new product that's like a canister, and to put out a fire, it was in a bedroom. He opened the door, opened the canister, threw it in, and it basically like a fire bomb, and it sucks the air out. And
doesn't suck the air
Or
out.
yeah,
It eliminates,
Neutralizes the
Yeah.
oxygen.
neutralizes the vapors from the fire.
and so that put the fire out as if he didn't have it, and if they had just got it like within
A week
the
before.
Yeah, a week before, and it's in a little case.
He's on their website now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's a good
It's
story.
pretty interesting.
And
Yeah.
he said if they wouldn't have had that, by the time they would have got the fire trucks there, it would have just said,
Save the foundation.
And,
Yeah.
just it would have been an all nighter for all the fires, and we probably would have had Hudson over.
Yep,
And
he
so
did a
that
great
little-
job.
And I think that canister, I think he said it was like
$150. He says they have a case and two canisters in it. The case is $150, and each canister is $150.
Yeah.
They like to have the case because then they don't roll around in the truck.
Yeah.
It's just not a
And go
good
off,
thing.
he said.
Sure.
But yeah, it was. It isolated not only the fire to the bedroom, but one wall,
One wall. So
in
if
the
you-
bedroom.
If you go on the website, so they showed that video, the news clip, and it was pretty cool. And it was a teenage girl's room,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was cool.
Okay. We've got the Washington County Sheriff's Report is in our packet. We've got the Fire Department report earlier. I think that concludes our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you.